Okay, so have you ever like stopped and thought about it? Like why you hear English in so many different places? It's
Yeah.
not just like in movies or music, but like, airports, business calls, uh, even websites.
Oh, absolutely.
It's kind of crazy when you think about it, right?
Yeah, it really is. It's everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's really what we're going to be looking at today in this deep dive.
Yeah.
Why English is such a global language,
Yeah.
what's made it so dominant around the world.
Yeah.
And we want to look at, what that means for you.
Yeah.
If you're learning English or if you already use English, we want to explore that side of things as well.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think for me, like you said, it really is everywhere. Like sometimes I just kind of take it for granted and then I stop and think like, wow,
Right.
this is really everywhere. And we've got like a ton of information to go through today. So I'm excited to kind of dig into it all.
Yeah. And what's so interesting is that it's not just a random thing.
Yeah.
It's not just like, oh, English is popular. There are very specific reasons why English has become so widespread.
Mm.
And so understanding those reasons can be really insightful, I think,
Yeah,
and maybe even motivating for anyone who is, learning or using English.
totally. Okay, so let's start with the basics. When we say global language,
Yeah.
what do we actually mean?
Well, it's more than just a lot of people speaking it right.
Yeah.
I mean, at its heart, a global language is a language that's used for communication
Hmm.
between people from different countries, different cultures. So it really acts as a bridge,
Hmm. I like
yeah,
that.
connects people.
Like a universal translator, kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so how widespread is English then? Like, give us some numbers. Like, how many people are we talking about? Where is it spoken? Like, what's the deal?
All right. So first of all, you've got the obvious ones, right?
Mm.
So English is the official language of a whole bunch of countries, the U.S., the
Yeah.
U.K., Canada, Australia, New Zealand.
Yeah.
But it goes way beyond that. Like
Yeah.
think about India, for example, or Singapore, or South Africa, or the Philippines.
Yeah.
In all of these countries, English is used as a main language in lots of important areas. So like education, the government, business.
So even if it's not everybody's first language,
Right.
it's still really important.
Yeah, it's got like this official status. It's essential in those places.
Right. It's like the kind of behind the scenes language
Yeah.
that makes things work.
Exactly. Yeah, like the nuts and bolts language. But on top of that, it's also the most common second language in the world.
Oh, wow.
So millions of people learn English so that they can talk to people from other countries who maybe don't speak their language.
So like if you've got someone from Japan and someone from Brazil,
Right.
they could use English to understand each other.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a link language, a common ground.
Yeah.
So wherever you go, you've got a good chance of finding someone who speaks at least a little bit of English.
That's amazing. So where did this all begin? Like how did English end up being so widespread in the first place? What's the history there?
Well, if you look back in time, the British Empire in the 18th and 19th centuries played a huge role.
Oh, yeah.
As the empire expanded, so did the English language.
It just spread everywhere.
It took root in all different parts of the world.
Yeah.
So that historical influence is still felt today.
Mm.
It's a big part of why English is spoken in so many countries.
Makes sense. So that kind of set the stage, but then what? Like what happened in more recent times that solidified English as this, global language?
Well, the U.S. becoming a global superpower in the 20th and 21st centuries, that had a huge impact.
Oh, yeah, of course.
That really strengthened English, particularly in areas like business, technology, entertainment.
So it's like this 1-2 punch, right? You've got the British Empire spreading it all over, and then the U.S. comes along and makes it even stronger.
Yeah, exactly. It's this kind of like a double whammy of historical and modern influence.
Gotcha. Okay, so we've talked about why English became so big, but now let's get specific. Like, how does this actually play out in the world? Like you mentioned business, you mentioned technology travel. Like, what are some concrete examples?
Sure. So take international business, for example.
Okay.
Let's say you have two companies doing a deal. One's in Germany, the other's in Japan. It's very likely they'll use English to communicate,
Yeah.
even if neither company is actually based in an English-speaking country.
Right.
A lot of global companies use English for like meetings, emails, negotiations, all sorts of things. So if you want a job that involves working internationally, English is usually essential.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like the common language of global commerce. What about education then? How does English factor in there?
Well, think about universities.
Yeah.
A lot of universities around the world, even in countries where English isn't Boeing, the native language, offer courses in English.
Yeah.
This means that international students can go and study in lots of different places.
It really opens up opportunities for people.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's online learning, which is massive these days. And a lot of that is in English, too.
I guess because that's where a lot of the information is coming from in the first place.
Right. It's like the default language for a lot of online learning.
Okay, so what about travel? We were talking about travel earlier.
So if you're at an airport anywhere in the world, you'll probably see signs and hear announcements in English.
Oh, yeah. For sure,
Though,
yeah.
along with the local language. And a lot of hotels, restaurants, tour guides, they'll use English too, because they know that lots of tourists will speak it.
It's like a lifeline when you're traveling, especially if you don't speak the local language.
Exactly. It can make things so much easier. And then, of course, there's technology and the internet.
Yeah.
I mean, the internet's massive, right? And did you know that something like 60% of all websites are in English?
Wow.
It's crazy. And then you've got social media apps, software.
Yeah.
A lot of it defaults to English.
Yeah, like all the big apps that everybody uses.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And even if you're learning something technical like coding or programming, a lot of the instructions and the resources will be in English. So to really get involved in the digital world these days, you pretty much need to know at least some English.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I feel like I've definitely noticed that myself. Like when I'm trying to learn new things online, it's so often in English. And then there's entertainment, right? Like movies,
Right.
music, TV shows.
Right. So much of the entertainment that people enjoy around the world is in English. You know, Hollywood movies, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
English language music is on the radio in tons of countries. People read books in English, watch TV shows in English. It's really popular. And it also means that people are learning English without even realizing it sometimes.
It's true. Like when I was learning French, I used to watch a lot of French movies with subtitles.
Right.
And that helps so much.
Yeah, it's a really good way to learn. So you can see that English being a global language isn't just because of some random historical accident. It's actually because it's useful in so many different areas of modern life.
I see what you mean. It's like a self-perpetuating cycle, right?
Yeah,
The more people use it, the more useful it becomes.
exactly.
Okay, so we've covered the why. Now let's dig into the how. Like, how does this actually look in practice? Give us some real-world examples.
All right, so remember, English isn't just spoken in English-speaking countries.
Yeah.
It's integrated into daily life all over the globe. So let's look at some specific examples.
Okay.
Let's start with business again. So let's say a German company and a Japanese company are working together.
Okay.
They're probably going to use English to communicate. Job interviews for international jobs are often in English as well. And if you're applying for a job, having a CV or resume in English can really boost your chances.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like in our global economy, it just makes everything run smoother.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a common currency in the business world.
I like that. Okay, so what about education then?
So we talked about universities offering courses in English.
Right.
But think about some of the top universities in the world like Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge.
Hmm.
They attract students from all over the place. And the main language they use is English.
So if you want to study at one of those top schools,
Yeah,
you pretty much need to know English.
right. And even if you're not studying at one of those specific universities, a lot of academic research and important papers are written in English. So it's a good idea to know it if you're interested in learning about those things.
It unlocks a lot of doors in the academic world. Okay, so what about travel? What kind of real-world examples can we see there?
So imagine you're traveling in a country where you don't speak the language.
Yeah.
You might be in Thailand or somewhere.
Right.
You get to the airport, you need to ask for directions, or you go to a hotel and you need to check in.
Yeah.
You might find that English is the only language you have in common with the people you're talking to. And luckily, in a lot of tourist areas, you'll find people who speak English.
Yeah, it definitely takes the stress out of traveling when you know you can fall back on English if you need to.
Exactly. Okay, so let's move on to technology and the internet. We already touched on this, but how about specific example?
Yeah.
Think about the apps you use every day on your phone, Facebook, Instagram, Google Maps.
Yep.
These apps are used by millions of people all over the world, and the main language they use is English.
Right.
So if you want to use those apps, you need to understand at least a little bit of English. And if you're interested in how these apps work, or if you want to learn how to code or build your own apps, knowing English is going to help you a lot.
It's like the language of the digital world.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And lastly, we've got entertainment. So think about all the popular movies that come out of Hollywood.
Yeah.
Those movies are shown all over the world.
Are.
Same with music.
Yeah.
Lots of popular music is in English.
True.
And then you've got books.
Yeah.
People read English books in all different countries.
Yeah.
And TV shows, too. So if you know English, you can enjoy all of these things in their original language.
And I think that's a big part of the appeal, right? You get the original experience.
Oh, exactly.
Okay, so given everything we've talked about, why should someone listening to this really care about learning English? Like, what's in it for them?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Learning English isn't just about, doing well in school or something like that. It can actually open up a lot of opportunities for you personally and professionally.
Okay. I like that. Let's make it personal for our listeners.
All right, so first of all, think about jobs. In a globalized world, a lot of companies are looking for employees who speak English. If you speak English, you've got a better chance of getting a job with a multinational company or working in industries like tourism hospitality, where you need to talk to people from all over the world.
So it really expands your job prospect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What about education?
Yeah.
If you want to study abroad, if you want to go to a university in another country, knowing English is often a requirement.
Right.
And even if you're studying in your own country, a lot of the materials and resources you'll need might be in English.
Yeah, so it opens up a lot of academic doors.
Yeah, definitely. What about travel?
Okay.
If you travel to another country and you don't speak the language, knowing English can make things so much easier.
For sure.
You can ask for directions, you can order food, you can talk to people you meet. It just makes traveling more enjoyable and less stressful.
It's like a safety net when you're in a new place.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's the whole social aspect of it. Knowing English allows you to connect with more people online,
Yeah.
on social media, in online communities.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah, you can talk to people from all over the world, share ideas, learn about different cultures.
So it makes the world a little bit smaller.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
And we've already talked about technology and the internet,
Right.
but just to emphasize it again, so much information is available online in English.
It is.
If you can understand English, you can access all of that. You can learn new skills.
Yeah.
You can stay up to date on what's happening in the world.
It's like having this massive library at your fingertips.
Exactly. And if you enjoy movies, music books, knowing English means you can enjoy them in their original language. You can understand the jokes, the nuances, the cultural references.
So you get a much richer experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And lastly, learning English can also boost your confidence.
Oh, yeah.
It's a challenging thing to do,
It is.
but when you achieve it, it can make you feel really good about yourself. You can communicate with more people. You can understand more of the world around you.
It's empowering.
Exactly.
Okay, so for anyone out there who's learning English, what kind of advice would you give them? Because it's not always easy, right? There are definitely challenges along the way.
That's true. It can be tough. You might feel tired. You might get confused. You might get frustrated.
Yeah, we've all been there.
But it's important to remember that every little step you take is a victory.
Oh, I like that.
Every new word you learn, every sentence you speak, every time you understand something you didn't understand before, those are all wins.
So it's about focusing on the progress, not on being perfect all the time.
Exactly. Don't be afraid to make mistakes either.
Yeah.
Everyone makes mistakes when they're learning something new. It's part of the process.
Yeah.
And in fact, making mistakes can actually help you learn.
It shows you where you need to improve.
Right. And the more you practice, the better you'll get. Just keep speaking, keep reading, keep listening, and you'll see yourself improving over time.
And I think it's important to remember the long-term benefits too, right?
Absolutely.
Like it might feel hard in the moment, but it's going to pay off in the long run.
Yeah, all that effort you're putting in now is going to open up so many doors for you in the future. So yeah, keep believing in yourself, keep practicing. And remember, you're not alone in this. There are millions of people all over the world learning English right now.
That's encouraging to hear.
Yeah, and it's a really rewarding journey.
Okay, so to wrap things up, what are the key takeaways you want our listeners to remember from this deep dive?
Okay, so first of all, learning English is a journey, not a destination. It's about making progress, not about being perfect.
Right.
Every step you take is important. Every word, every sentence, every mistake. Keep believing in yourself. Keep practicing. And remember, you're part of a global community of learners.
That's a great point.
And most importantly, remember that English is more than just a language.
It's a tool.
Yeah.
It's like a key.
It's a key that unlocks a whole world of opportunities. It allows you to connect with people from all over the world to access information and knowledge to grow as a person. So keep learning, keep exploring, and keep unlocking those doors.